What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back with another video, and today we're going to be looking at some NHL trade rumors from Spectres Hockey for October 25th, 2019. There's a bunch of cool stuff on here, so let's waste no more time and check all this out. So Pierre LeBrun expects the New Jersey Devils agent, Darren Ferris, I believe that's his agent, for Taylor Hall to meet with Ray Shero within the next 2 weeks. The dialogue between the two sides apparently has been very transparent, including almost daily communications between Hall and Shero, of course, the GM of the Devils. The winger, however, is nowhere close to deciding on whether or not he's going to start talking about his contract. He doesn't want to take the negotiations to the next level, so he wants to see where the Devils are probably going to be by the end of the season. But, you know, the Devils might not be able to wait that long. They might only be able to wait until the deadline, especially if they're playing poorly. They're going to have to move on from him because they're going to have to acquire pieces back. They can't just expect to have him just walk away in free agency for nothing and not get anything back from him, especially when he can get them quite a bit. So, again, I've been trying to update on Taylor Hall as much as I can, but there's also a couple other free agents that could become interesting. One of them not as much as the other, but they both are from the Washington Capitals, and that is Backstrom and Holtby. So LeBrun also said there's no hurry between the Washington Capitals and pending free agents Nicholas Backstrom and Braden Holtby. Now, of course, those are two key pieces to the Washington Capitals and their core obviously for like the past 10 years. They've been, you know, part of this team. Well, at least, you know, Backstrom's been there for a very long time, and Holtby's been there for a good amount of time too. There's been a dialogue between the team and the two players, but they have decided that they want to let the season play out for a while. The salary cap, the Capital status as a contender, and promising goalie Ilya Samsonov are behind the decision. So Samsonov could be the guy that could take over for Holtby. So if the Capitals feel like they can improve in other areas, and Holtby, you know, ultimately leaves at the end of the season, you're probably going to be able to keep Backstrom, which they want to do. Everybody, LeBrun and I think even the Spectres note here says that they expect that Backstrom's going to continue to stay with the Washington Capitals. That deal will get done, and Samsonov will ultimately be the goalie of the future for the Capitals. Holtby could be moving on from them, so that could open a big goaltending market for him. He could get quite a big contract, especially if he continues to play well this year. But there's also a chance that the Capitals hold on to Holtby. I think it's kind of unlikely, seeing how they could spend their money in other places and keep Backstrom and still have a goalie of the future in Samsonov, which maybe that's what they end up doing. All right, moving on. My camera decided to die. This is from Bob McKenzie reporting that the Chicago Blackhawks are working with Brendan Pierlini's agent to find him a new NHL home. He skated in just one NHL game this year. So the 6'3", 211-pound Pierlini has power forward potential. We all know that it still could be unlocked, and that's the biggest thing now. This is something that I personally, as a fan of hockey, would love to see more teams do, because we're seeing a lot of young, talented players that maybe aren't working out with certain NHL teams, not getting a fair shot. They just end up in the minors to develop. Sometimes these developing stages take way too long, and the development and the growth process ends up really not working at all. So if Pierlini ends up getting traded away from the Coyotes, he might have a new life, a new potential with another team. Now, he had 17 goals with the Coyotes in the 17-18 season, and he's only 23. So there's a big chance that he could move on to another team and improve greatly. So hopefully that happens for him. Now, this comes from The Athletic. Kevin Kurz was asked if he could see the San Jose Sharks consider moving Marc-Edouard Vlasic or Brendan Dillon. He doesn't see them shopping Dillon right now, as he's been their most consistent defenseman this season. If the Sharks are out of the playoffs by February's trade deadline, perhaps they'll consider shopping the pending UFA. Now, Vlasic's recent struggles are cause for concern, but his no movement clause makes a trade very unlikely. Kurz wondered if the Montreal Canadiens might be interested, but Vlasic hasn't given any previous desire to play for his hometown club. So a big chance that Vlasic isn't traded. Same thing with Dillon, especially if Dillon is performing for the team. But you never know. Come the trade deadline, you know, Vlasic might get frustrated with his situation. Dillon could as well, but I really don't think they will. I think the Sharks are going to be much better, especially if Jones gets going. And that blue line is fantastic. That team is fantastic. I don't really see why anybody would want to waive to move on from another team unless another situation is going on that we're unsure of. But Vlasic and Dylan are both guys that a lot of teams would be willing to take on. Vlasic, like is stated in here, has struggled a little bit, really isn't, you know, up to the contract really at this point. But at the same time, you never know. Again, going back to the thing, sometimes a change of scenery can really improve things, or it might just end up being the same. But that's something to keep an eye on. I would figure that it would be pretty interesting to see any one of those guys get moved, but it's way too early, especially for the Sharks, to consider making a move like that. Now, the last thing here is from the Ottawa Sun. Bruce Garrick reports that Senators general manager Pierre Dorion is working in search of forward depth. So the Senators have had some injuries right now, and apparently the market right now is Minnesota Wild forwards Kevin Fiala, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Ryan Donato. Those guys could be possibilities. Also, Tyler Toffoli is listed from the Los Angeles Kings, but the pending UFA is a likely trade deadline candidate. So teams that could be looking for another depth forward, some teams will pay a little bit more come the trade deadline. Those Minnesota Wild forwards could be options for the Ottawa Senators, but they have to be careful not to give up too many futures, as this team is still in a rebuilding stage, and we'll have to see what happens there. But lots of cool stuff here. Like I said, Taylor Hall, Backstrom, Holtby, Pierlini, and Senators and Sharks. A bunch of cool stuff here. Make sure to read it down below at Spectors Hockey if you want to read more. But if you're new to this channel and you like this kind of stuff, make sure to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Peace.